Okay, so hello, we are Erika Chiaparelli, a spine research fellow here in the United States.
I'm Vijay Kumar Loya, Spine Fellow at University of Hong Kong.
And I am Ali Ekrem Adıyaman, a neurosurgeon from Turkey.
And we are all members of the new AO Spine Youth Club. Welcome to the Expert Insight series, where we interview worldwide expert spine surgeons. So today, we are honored to be joined by Dr. Jeffrey Wang. He is a world-renowned spine surgeon whose expertise covers an extensive range of neck and back conditions and a leader in both clinical and academic field.
For his work, he has been recognized with Senior Achievement Award from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons and Spine Advocacy Award from the North American Spine Society. Dr. Wang currently serves as the chairman of AO Spine International and is also a part of board of director for the prestigious Cervical Spine Research Society. He's a co-director of Spine Center and chief of orthopedic service at University of Southern California and professor of orthopedic surgery and neurosurgery at UCLA. He serves as editor and reviewer of the prestigious The Spine Journal and is editor-in-chief of the Global Spine Journal.
Dr. Wang is known for his outstanding research on minimal invasive spine surgery, biomedical engineering, and gene treatment of spinal disorders. Topics he teaches us about his numerous articles and publications. Welcome, Dr. Wang. Thank you for accepting our invitation. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And let's start our interview. Before beginning, could you tell us your full name, specialty, and full current position?
Yeah, so my name's Jeff Wang. I'm a spine surgeon. I'm currently the co-director of the University of Southern California, we call it USC, USC Spine Center at the Keck School of Medicine at USC in Los Angeles, California. I'm a professor of orthopedic surgery and neurosurgery. I'm the Spine Fellowship Director.
Good. Could you share a little bit about your roots and what's your hometown?
Yeah, so what's kind of interesting is I was actually born in a place called Mitchell, South Dakota, which is right in the middle of the United States. And when I was young, my family moved to West Virginia, which is also a very rural area. So I grew up in a very small town in not a very culturally diverse area. And I actually think that that has helped me because coming from a small town, I feel like not really familiar with the larger cities. And growing up, I was in a very protected environment in a very small town in the countryside. And I think it kind of gave me a very simple upbringing. And it kind of is my theme throughout my career is I try to simplify things. And I've been told that if I can simplify things that I can understand it, then usually other people understand it.
That's true. Completely true. Thank you for sharing.
So can you tell a little bit about where did you train and when did you complete your residency?
Sure. So after I finished medical school, so I went to Stanford University for undergrad, and then I went to University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine, and then I did my internship and orthopedic residency at UCLA, which is the University of California's Los Angeles, which is in Los Angeles also. Once I finished there, I went to Case Western Reserve in Cleveland, Ohio, and I did a spine fellowship there. And then after that, I entered my job, and I've actually been in academic medicine since that time.
So now, so technically you went from one small town to live all the way in the United States. So you have been in Cleveland, you have been in the West Side. Have you been in the East Side? No, yet. Have you lived?
I guess West Virginia is closer to the East Coast, although it's not on the coast, but it's considered in the eastern part. So being there and in Pittsburgh, it's sort of on the eastern part. So I've kind of been all over.
Nice. Well, now you know everything.
Yeah, and you mentioned about your starting spine fellowship. Why did you choose this field? What do you think are the pros and cons becoming a spine surgeon?
Yeah, well, I think when you're young, you're always influenced by mentorship and sort of what you see and the people around you. And when I was in training, whether it was accurate or not, the people involved in spine were really sort of mentors to me. And you start to associate, I think, when you're younger, the specialty with the people that are involved in it that are close to you. And so for me, it was really important to have mentorship, and I kind of associated the specialty with that. And then on top of that, at least in the orthopedic residency, I think that we, at least in the United States, we don't get a lot of spine training in the general orthopedic residency. You know, you get a lot of total joints, you get a lot of sports medicine, but you don't get a lot of spine. And so I didn't want to sound like I was overconfident, but I also felt like at the end of my residency, I didn't get enough spine. So my feeling is I would go into spine and really round out my training. I didn't really know at the time. And again, I'm kind of dating myself. I'm a little older, but back then, you weren't really focused on one area so much. And so I thought, well, I'll get some spine training, and that way I can do everything in orthopedics. And wherever I end up, I'll be able to do it all. And it just so happens that after doing spine training, I just focused on spine. So yeah, I've been stuck in spine ever since.
Nice. So you mentioned a mentor, or kind of like the environment sometimes somehow influences where you go through in your career. So thinking about your professional journey, who inspired you specifically, apart from a mentor, or I don't know if it was a person specifically or so, who inspired you the most to become the surgeon you are now, and why?
Yeah, so for me, it's not one single person so much as it is, I think, three people. First is my father. My father was the greatest man I've ever met. I mean, he is the kindest, most reasonable person. And before he passed away, I can tell you that he was the one I most admired. And so I credit him for kind of giving me the drive and sort of, I guess, my core values. Professionally, it started off with the late Ed Dawson, and he was one of my mentors when I was a resident. He established the program, the spine program at UCLA. Now, he unfortunately passed away from cancer, but I can tell you during my residency, he was the role model, not just because he was a spine surgeon, but because he took the time to teach us. He took the time to tell us more about just professional life, but more about our personal lives. And he really gave us advice and really brought us along. And so he was a great man. And then during my spine surgery fellowship, it was Dr. Henry Bowman. And unfortunately, he's passed away too, which I think kind of dates me and makes me feel even older. But he not only taught me spine surgery, but taught me again how kind of to look at life, how to treat people, just the mannerisms, and how to deal with things outside of the professional side. And I think for me, it's more about the people that not only teach you professionally what I guess their job is to teach you, like the clinical side, but the ones that go beyond that and take an interest in you and teach you more, and you get sort of a broader sort of education. For me, those are the people that I kind of migrated towards, and I respected a great deal.
So, as we know, can you tell a little bit more about your professional journey? Like, after fellowship, like how did you end up doing now? I believe you do only cervical spine. So, how do you do? I mean, like, how did you get there?
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting, as I mentioned earlier, going into a spine fellowship as a resident. So before I entered spine, I didn't think that I would just only do spine. But then you start to get into spine and you realize, hey, this is very complicated and you're really a lot of fun. And then I stayed in academics. And, when you're in academics now, and even at that time, you kind of have one area of specialty. And so I kind of got stuck in spine, which I love. I love. But then I guess, when I started spine, everyone did everything. And now it's been so specialized. So I do focus on the cervical spine. I still do, adult degenerative lumbar. I still do that. I still do deformity when I have to. Although I joke with the fellows that I really don't enjoy doing it. But I really enjoy doing cervical spine surgery. I don't only do cervical spine surgery, but that's really kind of my focus and interest. But I think we just kind of migrate. The older you get, you kind of want to do the things that excite you. You want to do things that you enjoy doing. And I think your tolerance as you get older, well, maybe not your tolerance, but for doing stuff you don't really like, goes down a little bit. And I think as you get older, you have the opportunity to do more of the things you like doing. And I think that's a natural migration to specialize, not because you sit there and say, I want to only do this, but because that's what you enjoy.
Okay. So speaking about all this, can you tell us about your memorable case, and can you share what were the lessons you learned about it? Probably one of the most memorable. It can be a good one, or it can be, not so good one.
Yeah, I think the thing that kind of sticks out in my mind is, so I guess you would say I'm very conservative. And what I mean by that is I do surgery a lot, but I do it when it's appropriate. And I don't like it when people are too aggressive and they just recommend surgery off the bat without trying conservative care. There was a patient, and this was probably 20 years ago, who was an older gentleman, and he kept coming to see me. He had a lumbar problem or a cervical problem, and I kept giving him conservative care, and I followed him for years. I kept seeing him, and at one point, when I finally said, "Well, we're going to try some more of this," and I was about to leave, he said, "Dr. Wang, can I just talk to you for a second?" And I'll never forget these words. He goes, Dr. Wang, you've been following me for many years, and it just seems like you don't want to do surgery on me. Is it because I'm too old? And, for me, I kind of looked at him and he was just so nice and genuine. I said, yeah, I guess that factors into it. And I think he was like 87. And he was healthy and things like that. And I'll never forget, he told me, he said, Dr. Wong, I appreciate you seeing me all these years, but I'm really in a lot of pain. And I might be 87. I don't know how many years I have left, but I want those years to be good and high quality. And whether it's 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, if there's a way you can improve my quality of life, not please don't withhold that because of my age. And I'll tell you, I was instantly kind of ashamed. I looked at him and said, something, you're right. And so we ended up doing surgery on him. He did very well for the rest of his life. And that taught me a lot of lessons. Number one, you don't discriminate on people, even if they're older. It doesn't mean you get too aggressive. I mean, if someone's 103, you don't want to do a big surgery on them. But at the same time, you have to look at each patient individually. Number two, I learned that you have to look at their physiological age, because just because they're 87, they might be physiologically younger, and vice versa. There can be some younger patients that are physiologically much older and more ill and more likely to have complications. But for me, it was just that personal connection. For me, it was like, don't go in with just preconceived notions, but just treat everyone as an individual and talk about quality of life and really try to understand what they're going through. So for me, that was a very memorable surgery. It wasn't a complication or something like that, but I learned a lot personally from that.
Well, I heard from one of my mentors that the great surgeon is not the one that always operates, but the one that knows when to operate. So that, even though in that scenario maybe he wanted to have surgery, it's good that you know when to do it, and you don't just rush to it. Yeah. So that's great.
Yeah. Thank you. And Dr. Wang, you are currently a prestigious member of AO Spine. Is it important for a spine surgeon to be part of an academic community like AO Spine? In which way AO Spine influenced your career?
Yeah, so AO Spine has definitely influenced my career, and I it's hard. We'd be here for hours if I told you all the different ways. I mean, I would say if you talk to anyone involved in AO Spine, whether they're a member, whether they're part of a local committee, country committee, or on the international basis, every level of people involved in AO Spine, they'll always say that it's about the friendships and the collegiality and the colleagues that they've met. And so for me, that's number one. But number two, I think it's important to be part of some community, whether it's locally, regionally, or internationally, that kind of gives you value and personal value. And for me, AO Spine that's AO Spine. And when I look at it, I've been able to achieve a lot of leadership roles in AO Spine. And I kind of look at it, if I can do it, anyone can do it. And it's kind of interesting. This 2 weeks ago, we were at the Global Spine Congress in Bangkok, which is AO Spine International's annual meeting. And I'll never forget, when I was doing the opening symposium, I actually introduced the incoming chair of AO Spine International. And what he told me is that 12 years ago, in I think 2012, I was chair of AO Spine International, and I was holding my first board meeting in Los Angeles, and the chair of education just happened to have a group of young surgeons. He was trying to do some program, kind of like I think what you guys are doing. And I remember he told me, I walked into the room before the board meeting and I gave them a very inspirational speech. And he told me that I said to them that you as the young people are the future of the organization, and that any of you could take my position, which was at the time the chair of AO Spine International, and I challenged them to do it. And it turns out 12 years ago, that young surgeon was Dr. Juan Emmerich, who is now the chair-elect, who will take over in a month, the chair of AO Spine International. In a period of 12 years, this gentleman went from a young surgeon in the organization, just getting involved, and now he's chair of the entire AO Spine International. For me, that was very inspirational to me. I admitted to him, I have no memory of that. I kind of vaguely remember walking into the room, but he tells me I walked in the room and told him that, and that really inspired him. And so I think what that shows you is that at any stage in your career, even as a young surgeon, you can make a difference in AO Spine, and you can influence AO Spine, and you can become a leader in AO Spine. And I think he's living proof of that.
Yeah. So actually, I remember having met you last year at Prague. So I remember the members on this session, I mean, you were the only speaker who didn't have a PowerPoint presentation. But I still remember the words you said. It's not important who your mentor is. What is more important is how much you do even after going through your mentorship. So, yeah. So, as we know, Dr. Wang, you were the first person to hold Global Spine Congress in Los Angeles. Can you tell a little bit about it, the history of this, and why a young surgeon should attend it?
Yeah, so the first part of is kind of boring, but for those of us that were around at the beginning, it's the most exciting part. It was very difficult to start that meeting. Given the politics within the entire AO Foundation, starting that Congress was something very new, and we had a lot of opposition. But I'll tell you, the board at the time of AO Spine and all the people involved really need to be credited for pushing that through. We had a great meeting. It was a first sort of academic meeting with submitted abstracts and original research, and it was kind of unique within the whole AO organization. And so I'm delighted that now, this year in Bangkok, last year in Prague, that people look at it as an established academic meeting. I still remember it from when it was very hard, and there's still a lot of opposition to it within the foundation just because it's new and different. But I can tell you, for me, it's really exciting. What I would do is, it's hard to articulate it because everyone sees advertisements for a lot of meetings. What I can tell you is that when you're there at the meeting, and I think if you were in Prague, you probably experienced it, there's an excitement about this meeting that you just don't get in any other meeting. And I'm not going to say it's a bunch of young people there, but there are a lot of young people there. It's very exciting. The sessions are full. Even through the last day, the rooms are full. And for me, it's like I don't see that at any other meeting. And when I look at surgeons, I look at people that are speaking, I even look at industry, and I look at all the people that are interacting, they all have a positive experience, and there's some energy about it. So for me, it's like I can tell you how great it is. You can read all about it, but you're not going to understand the true value of the Global Spine Congress unless you're there to experience it. And I can promise you, if you're there to experience it, you'll feel the excitement. And I don't think you get that excitement at any other meeting. So I guess I would challenge you to go and experience it for yourself if you haven't been there. The people that are there, they want to keep coming. Regardless of where it is in the world, they still want to keep coming.
That's true. So you're a worldwide recognized research and educational leader in spine surgery. To what extent it is important for a spine surgeon to also do research and teaching?
So I always tell people, you know, I have two sons and I've raised them and they're adults now. And I say, I'm through trying to make people do things they don't want to do. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is, I think that you should do what you truly enjoy. And if you're not into research, if you're not into teaching, then you can't fake that. And if you're doing it, you're not going to enjoy it. But what I can tell you, and you probably have experienced some of that, that you actually get a lot of enjoyment from that. For me, teaching is one of the most enjoyable things. And it makes like a routine, mundane surgery that you've done thousands of times, that you're just doing again and again and again. That's what makes it's exciting when you're teaching someone, because you see that sort of the light bulb go off in their head and they're like, oh, that's cool. When you teach them little tricks. And for me, I try to get that excitement in the people I'm teaching, whether it's a lecture, whether it's an interactive group, or whether it's in surgery or in clinic. I want that person to kind of walk away with that value and feeling like that was worthwhile. And I think it takes an effort to do that, because any of us could get up there and give a lecture based on literature and read it, but it's how you deliver it and what points you're trying to make, and trying to go beyond what's in the textbook, right? Interpret things a certain way. That's the key thing. Research is a little different. For me, I find research very gratifying because I feel like I can make things better for my patients and maybe make things better for your patients. Because if you gather your patient's experience, so for me, that's the greatest form of teaching, because no matter who you are anywhere in the world, if you have a series of patients, you develop a certain amount of knowledge from that. And if you put that in an abstract form and present it, and then you publish it in a paper, then people throughout the world are going to read that, and it may improve how they treat their patients. And when if it's a peer-reviewed publication, a lot of people will respect that because they'll know that it's peer-reviewed. So for me, that's the only way to influence people outside of your practice, right? How can I influence a patient in India or a patient over in Italy or a patient in China? I can't go there and treat that patient, but if you publish some research that makes a difference and people change their practice based on that, you've just affected someone beyond your own practice. And for me, that's very gratifying.
Thank you.
Yeah. And also you are editor-in-chief of the Global Spine Journal. What are your responsibilities for this role?
That's a lot of time. So first of all,
Just briefly.
the journal is great. It's a peer-reviewed publication. I think it adds to AO Spine because a lot of the knowledge that comes out of the research developed by AO Spine gets published in that journal. For me, it's a lot of work, and I have to credit all the other editors, all the board, and all the deputy editors and the reviewers, because they devote their time, and no one gets paid. So it's a lot of time and effort, but it's I think very worthwhile.
So coming back to your career, is there any achievement that you are any achievement you are the most proud of, or one achievement that you're the most proud of? Maybe.
So there are two things, and they're kind of the same thing. I mean, one is that I never set out to say, hey, I'm going to be president of the Cervical Spine Research Society, or I'm going to be president of ASS, or president of AO Spine International. For me, it was very satisfying to achieve those roles just through hard work and just interacting with people. So for me, those are the greatest achievements, in the sense that for me personally, achieving those roles without like setting that as a goal. But for me also, it's about balancing that with my personal life, because I've had a very fulfilling personal life with a great family, and still have a great family. And to be able to do that and achieve those goals, a lot of time you feel like, hey, I have to sacrifice one for the other. Not necessarily. You don't have to. If you have the right balance, I think you can do it all.
It's good to know.
So in this sense, if you could turn back time, what advice would you give to your younger self? Maybe what would you have done differently?
I think that my advice would be is that continue to build value in yourself. And what I mean by that is that whether you're doing a research project or participating in some group and devoting your time to something, you may not get the goal right away, right? It's not like when you're young, you do something, you agree to do some work for a society or with AO Spine, that's going to translate directly into you becoming chair of AO Spine, right? But what you do is by doing that, you're improving yourself and you're building value in yourself. It's almost like getting an education. You're improving your worth, your worth, and it's not just monetarily. It's you're improving what you can bring to society and bring to the table. So just keep building value in yourself, and the results will come. And the more value you build in yourself, you'll see the results.
Okay, and to the end, we ask playing a quick game in which we ask a question and you reply with a quick and fast answer. Okay.
Okay, like one word.
Yeah.
One word mainly.
But you
The first
can
thing that comes to your mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's your hobby?
Exercise.
Good. Favorite book, if you have any.
Good to Great by Jim Collins.
favorite sport and team.
A great what?
Favorite sport and team.
Pittsburgh Steelers, and American NFL football.
Yeah, maybe easy, but your favorite surgery?
Oh, right now it's cervical laminoplasty.
Yeah.
Navigation or freehand.
Ooh, you got to have both, but I really love navigation.
Okay, okay. Good.
Open or MIS.
Open. Got to learn the basics.
Good.
Yeah, exactly. A word that defines spine surgery.
Very satisfying.
Good. So we are at the end of this amazing interview. Thank you so much for joining today and for being a source of inspiration and motivation for young surgeons of AO Spine Youth Club. It has been a true privilege to interview with you and for all the knowledge and all the advice you have given today to us.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
Thank you so much.